Hey everybody, it's AJ from Alpha Pixel, and today I am excited to bring you the new version of Image2Plane, which is Image2Plane Pro. It's the third version of the plugin and by far the most feature-packed. We've completely rebuilt it from the ground up with all kinds of new features for you to play around with. There's a lot to cover, so I'm just going to jump right into it and start a new scene here. And for those of you familiar with the previous version of the plugin, you might recognize some similar options in the first tab here. And really quickly, I'm just going to show those who haven't used the plugin before what it does. So once we have all the settings set here, which I'll go over in a minute, you go down to Import Folder, find your folder of images, and hit Open. And you'll see instantly your images appear in the viewport. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the work plane here. And for those of you who have used previous versions, you'll notice that they come in now by default in a collage format, all lined up in these different rows. So that will be the new default for import, and we'll have settings to adjust that here. So now I'm just going to really quickly go through the features of the plugin. So first we have max number of files, which is just going to limit the number of files. Say you have a folder of thousands of images. This will just limit the number of files to whatever you set it to, so you don't have to import every file. So you want to give the users ways to filter out your images and pick more specifically the files you want. So you can choose a max number of files. So I have it set to 50, and by default it's going to grab the first 50 files it finds in order. So it'll always grab these files for you unless you hit random files. Now this will be a random seed you can set and change. And another nice new feature of the new version is we have a reload button, which will let you update the scene with any of the changes you've made in the plugin. So now that we have our random seed set and hit reload, it'll tell us what folder we imported from, and it'll grab us a new set of images. We can change that again and hit reload. And we've got another new set of images. And then row height will just be in centimeters, how tall your images come in. So you can kind of set your scene scale in that sense. And number of rows is just going to be that. So we have set 5, so we get 5 rows. If we change that to, say, 9 rows and hit reload, you'll see it gets much taller. And then we have this center image down here. And the center image is actually going to place a sort of hero image in the middle of your collage here. And I do want to stress that you do not need to be working with a collage in this plugin. It's not simply a collage plugin. You can modify the planes however you want, but this is just the default. So with the center image, all you need to do is pick your center image. So it's going to be a single file that you specify. So I'm just going to pick my little alpha pixel cube here. And then you set the number of rows tall you want it to be. So I'm actually going to turn this number back down and to 7 rows for the overall collage. And then I'm going to turn my hero image row height to 5. And hit reload. And there you can see it made 7 rows, and then it made the hero image 5 rows tall. So you can kind of modify things in that sense. So it gives you a level of flexibility in how you want to see that. And we will go over shortly on how to change the look of the collage if you want to. So then we have our materials tab over here where you can import materials only. We'll just import the materials and not bring in any planes. Reflectance will load it into the reflectance channel, and by default these do come in on a Cinema 4D material, and that is because it's the most universal, and almost all third-party plugins can render standard Cinema 4D materials or at least easily convert them. So this will just turn on the reflectance channel and add to alpha. We'll also add in, if there is an alpha channel, it will add that into the alpha channel of the material. And the luminance will just turn on the luminance channel and add the image into that channel instead. So I'm going to turn those off. And then preview size will set the default preview size. So if we zoom in here, you can see things that are maybe a little bit blurry. If we upped that to the 1024 by 1024 and hit reload, you'll see it got a lot more clear. Although it will use up a little bit more of your system resources if you have a lot of images. If you have a smaller number of images, probably not a big deal. And then the image filter section just gives you another way to sort of select the images that you want to select. So first we have image extension filters here. So you can pick images with certain extensions if you just want JPEGs, just want PNGs, or if you want all of those, or you can have it search for any extension. And here you can actually specify an extension. Say you wanted a PSD file and a EXR file. Just separate with a comma, and it will add those. And then there's a name search. So for example, if you were looking for images with bikes, you could just type bike, and if it had that name inside the file extension name, it would grab those images. Just another way to help customize what you're bringing into the program. And then really quick, the buttons, we already went over import folder and reload. Import's how you get your images in. Reload is how you update your scene. Materials to plane is if you have images on planes over here in the material manager, but not necessarily in the viewport. You can go ahead and click that and it will bring those. Here, let's go ahead and see. I'm going to hide this really quick. You can select those and hit materials to plane and it will just bring those in. They're overlapped by default, but nope, that one was very small. So they're going to be overlapped, but they're all going to come in as planes there. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete those. Remove collage, that will, if you have it selected and hit remove collage, it will get rid of anything to do with that. It will get rid of all the materials, all of the objects in the object manager. There's layers. It's a lot to get rid of without that. So it just takes care of everything all in one go for you. And then save as default will save all of your settings that you have set up in the plugin as the default. So you don't have to keep modifying things every time you open the plugin. And then position effector is a new feature of the plugin that will let you use your planes with MoGraph. And of course, in a lot of instances, you won't even need the position effector for MoGraph. But by default, when you turn on, so right now our cloner isn't even turned on. So if we go ahead and turn that on, you won't really notice a difference. Everything's going to be in the same spot. But what you won't see is that each one of these planes, its center point is in the center of the collage. So if you were to run a field through this, let's go ahead and just add a plane effector here. And let's go ahead and turn this to 0 and push it way back. Now if I add a field and add a linear field, you're going to see right away that even though it's over these planes, it's not affecting anything. But watch when it gets to the center, everything moves together because all of their MoGraph points are in the center there. So what the position, let me grab this here. What the position effector does is it brings back individual positions for each of the planes. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and just make sure it gets put into the effectors tab, and you're going to want it on the top of the stack, which is actually the first one that it reads because it reads from top to bottom. So we want that there. And you can already see that it's working there. So now when I grab the linear field here, whoops, grab the adjustment there. Now you can see that things are being, the planes are being read. The planes' positions are being read individually. So that makes it a lot nicer to animate them individually. So I'm going to turn that off for now and I'm actually going to delete all of this and get back to where we were. So that's the import tab. I'm going to skip over modify for just a second, but that is where we will modify all of our planes. I'm just going to really quickly run through these other two tabs. The 3D tab will handle anything 3D related. So another new feature is that we can now extrude planes. And it will affect all of them together. And then we have an extrude blur. So you'll see when you extrude a plane, it leaves the streaks. It leaves streaks on the sides and top. So when we hit render, we're gonna, so actually I have it on Redshift. I'm gonna wanna change it to standard here. So when I hit render, you'll see that we have these streaks. So if we do extrude blur, it's just going to blur the extrusion and basically get rid of all those streaky lines. So if we crank it up to say 50, you'll see it starts to blur and it kind of creates a nice smooth look to the extrusions. So we can crank that up even further, and it will, again, just smooth things out even more. So I'm going to turn the extrude down a bit, turn the blur down, and then the bevel size is just the front-facing bevel. Let me turn on the lines quick, and you can probably see that a little bit better. So if we crank that up and down, you'll see it's getting larger there. And then the bevel segments is just how many subdivisions on the bevel you get. So I'm going to turn that off now. And then the rounding radius, I am actually going to turn extrude off and turn lines off. And then if I turn the rounding up, you'll see it's going to round the corners, which I think kind of makes a cool look. And then the next option here is the frame, which you can put a border around your images. The plugin brings in a default profile frame, but you can load in whatever profile you want on here. You know, you could make metal frames, wood frames, you know, whatever you want. The default frame is just an n-sided object because it's the most versatile, and you can kind of change the number of sides to whatever you want. So if you want a square, just do 4 sides. I'm going to actually turn the rounding down here, and you're going to see, you know, if you get some faceted edges like this, we're going to go ahead and take care of that in the subdivisions tab. I just want to say that the Phong angle will take care of some of the faceted look. And then you can add in a frame material here as well, anything you want from your material tab. Say we wanted to scale up the frame size a little bit, and make a new material here, and go into the reflectance and add a Beckman, and then just turn the roughness up, and maybe turn the sampling up a little bit as well. We can go ahead and drop that in and render. We'll get a nice metallic look to our frame border. But again, you can see that kind of faceted edge there. So we're going to go over to the subdivision tab, and that's where you're going to want to adjust the edge subdivisions. So we'll skip face for a second and go to edge. And if we go to subdivided and I believe turn up, turn down the maximum length, because a shorter length will subdivide it further. There we go. And you get different options. You have a natural and subdivided. So natural, you're going to want to crank the number up, and subdivided, you're going to want to crank the number down to get more subdivisions. I'm going to turn off the frame for now and turn off the rounding as well. So then we'll go into face mode here, which if I turn on the lines, you're going to see it's subdivided by default. And those subdivisions are just going to let you be able to work with deformers much better. If you didn't have any subdivisions and you tried to use, say, a bend deformer on this, it's going to look very weird because it won't have any polygons to bend. So you have 2 modes. You have n-gon and regular grid. And if we turn regular grid up, you're going to get less subdivisions because the polygon size is larger. And then you'll see too, the edge subdivision is affected in this as well. So if you do turn back the subdivisions on the edges up, you'll get a more uniform subdivision there. And for most deformers, you really don't need a ton of subdivisions, just a few, you know, just enough so that you can modify your planes. So really quick, if we take a bend deformer, and if we want to use a bend deformer on this, we don't want to drop it in the cloner. That will screw up the order of things. So let's just actually hit Alt-G and put it into a null, and then drop the bend deformer in there. And then I'm just going to adjust the size really quick. And then you'll see when I start bending that it's working, although it's the wrong orientation. So I'm going to actually switch it to 90. I'm going to actually shrink it down a little bit here, and then switch it to 90 again. And now I can bend. And I'm going to keep the length so that it doesn't stretch our planes out. And then I'm also going to go unlimited. And unlimited will let it go bend forwards and backwards. So you don't need to crank the bend up too much to get an effect on this. So here's only 6%, but that's how you would get that. And if I went in and turned those subdivisions down, I'm sorry, or change it to Ngon, it's hard to see, but that middle plane for sure does not have enough subdivisions. It's kind of sticking out. So we'll stick with the regular grid. And I will go ahead and delete that and pull that back out of the null. And then Z subdivisions is just if you had extrusions, it is just these subdivisions here. So I can turn those up or down as needed. If you were using, say, like a twist deformer to twist the entire thing, you would want more subdivisions there. And then the help tab is just going to bring you to the website or the help documentation on the website, where you'll have a text document that goes over all the features. And of course, if you have further questions, you can reach out in the contact form on the website as well. So the last tab is the Modify tab, and I'm actually just going to turn down the extrusions and make sure we're just working with the flat planes. The Modify tab is where we can have a lot of fun changing up the look of our images if we do want a collage. Again, if you don't want a collage, you don't need to work with a collage. It's just kind of the default import. And I am actually going to turn off the grid here, so we just see the planes. And you are going to want to work with this in the front view, because when we're moving planes around, we don't want to accidentally move them in Z space. So we can modify this collage any way we want. We've created a snapping and scaling system so you can move things around very quickly. And we have a few other very cool little tools in here to help you modify. Say, for example, I wanted to bring this image here up here. You can use the snapping snap mode here, and these little boxes will just indicate which corner you want to snap from. So first, kind of look around where you want it to go. So if I want to put this plane up here to kind of balance things out, I'm going to want to snap to the lower left corner. So I will hit that one, and as soon as I click and I can move around, you'll see these little red rings. That's going to help the plugin look to where you want it to snap to. So it's going to find the planes where your mouse is hovering. So if I want it in this corner here, you'll see that the rings are on those two planes. I'm going to let go and snap. And it's going to keep the same spacing you have set up for the rest of them. So I could grab this image, snap, grab this image, I'm going to hit the other corner, I'm going to snap, and you can move things around very easily. I'm going to go ahead and select these three images here and delete them. And I'm going to select this image here and use scale mode. And so we'll select scale mode, and we're going to select the corner we want to scale from. So I want to scale from the lower left. And once you click and drag, you'll see that it proportionally will scale the image up. So let's say I want to let go there, and it will look weird on the texture until you let go, and then the texture will kind of correct itself there. But we have that little gap in there. So let's say I wanted to actually fill that space. We can go uncheck scale proportional and do the same thing. Select our corner, and now we can kind of scale it however we want. And when I let go, it will still try to adjust. We are going to have a little bit of repeat there now on the image, although it's hard to tell because of what the image is here. But we can do, we have these full image and fill plane modes. So full image will adjust so that you can see the full image on the plane, and fill plane will actually fill the entire plane with a single image. It's a little tough to see on that one. Let's try it on a different one here. Let's go ahead and try it on this one really quick. So I'm just going to bring this down here and scale it from the top right corner. I scaled it a little too evenly. Let's actually just do it like this and do vertical. Okay, so we're left with this. So full image is going to let you see the full image on the plane, which might repeat it. Now fill plane is going to stretch the image so that it fills the entire plane. So we get this kind of a look. Another nice thing about this is if we go into that actual plane in here, if we go into our object manager and hit S, we can jump right to the plane, and we select the material tab. We can actually adjust the image around and reposition it if we didn't like the composition. We can reposition it if we didn't like the composition, but honestly, I think centered was looking pretty good. I'm just going to go back into object mode and select that and hit the edge mode here. Check on scale proportionally, and then just scale that back in. So let's go ahead and try and modify this further. Let's say we wanted to create a new image. Let's say we wanted to delete this cluster of images here. Oops, I'm in point mode. Let's go to object mode here. I'm going to delete this cluster of images here. We have something called empty space that will create a new plane in that empty space there. And what we need to do is just select the bounds, select the images around it to tell the plugin where to insert the new plane. Down here it will tell you the order that you need to select them in. So we start with the left plane and go top, right, bottom. So basically we go in a little, start with the left and go clockwise around, select the bounds that the plane should be put in. So we'll go left, top, right, bottom, and then hit empty plane, or hit empty space. And you can see it drops a plane right in the empty space there. It comes in with this default number pattern just until you fill it with a new image. And we could go ahead and drop one of our other images onto it. Otherwise, we can use this populate button, which will go ahead and do that for us. So if we select the plane and select one of our images and hit populate, it actually fit very nicely. I think it is repeated a little bit, and this adjust planes checkbox will actually change the plane to match the image. So if I turned that on and did it again, you'll see it kind of shrunk the sides. That adjusted the plane to match exactly what the image is. But I actually kind of liked how it was before, so I'm going to undo that. And this would work with multiple planes if you wanted to get a new set of images on a bunch of planes. I'm going to uncheck that too. You could grab, say, these 4 down here, and then grab 4 images from up here in your material manager if you had a different set of planes you wanted to bring in, and then hit populate, and then watch down here. When I click this, you'll see it changed the images. So you can populate your planes with new images if you want to. I'm just going to kind of clean this up a little bit here. And the last button up here to go over is the add planes. And that will do just as it says and add a plane, although you can click and drag planes wherever you want them to create more variation. So I see a little gap in here now. So I'm going to click the add planes button. And now from now on, wherever you click and drag, it's going to create a plane. So I'm going to click and drag, and it will create a plane there. And just go ahead and start clicking and dragging wherever you feel like you want planes to be created. I'm going to create a little variation down here and add a few. And then whenever you're done, just single click to exit. And that says it down here as well. It will tell you how to get out of that tool. So I'm just going to quick kind of modify and center these up a little bit. I'm going to use snap mode to kind of line things up. And then I am going to select all those new planes, and you can grab them from up here as well. And let's see, I have eight planes selected, so I'm going to grab 8 materials. And then I am going to hit the populate button. And you can see it added materials to all those planes. Now this isn't the prettiest collage of images, but just mostly demonstrating how it works. Feel free to modify however you want. One thing I did forget to mention earlier is you can dynamically adjust the spacing, but the spacing needs to be adjusted before you move things out of order, so definitely set that first, and it does remind you down here, do not change after modifying the images. So I'm going to actually kind of undo everything we've done here and just hit reload. So if we go back into that Modify tab and adjust our image spacing, you can see that you can go ahead and adjust that dynamically at the start. But again, kind of set that up ahead of time, and then once you have that, then go ahead and go crazy and modify however you want to. Then Collage Cloner is just going to be where you say you had multiple collages. This is where you would load your collage in, and it's always going to come in with the name of the folder you imported, so that you can kind of differentiate which collages are which. But if you wanted to modify a different one, then just drag that into here and start modifying that one. You'll also notice that if you try to change the mode, you're going to get a little bit of weirdness. That is because of the plugin is affecting things. So if you want to modify things with different modes, with different cloner modes, you're just going to want to create a new cloner, and then you can middle click and select all of the children, and then just unselect the cloner and drag them into a new cloner. And from there, it'll behave just like any standard cloner. So you can use grid mode and space them out however you want. So. And if you want them just in a line, linear, you can go ahead and do that too. And that is the overview of Image2Plane. And like I said, this is not just, although it has a lot of collage tools, this is not just a collage plugin. You can do obviously anything your mind can think of with images. Just getting them into the scene and onto planes is a big part of the battle, which is what this plugin takes care of. And I'm really excited to see what the community is able to do with it. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.